Hey everybody, how's it going? This is a ramble video for generalistic stuff for basing. I went over how-tos a little bit on how to make specific bases in other videos. This is more of a generalistic how-to for model positioning as well as flocking your base. First up is model positioning. That's how your model sits on the base. And what you want is a cool looking base. Now, not too crazy because then your model might get lost in the base, especially if you don't paint the model up to the standard of the base. And by that I mean the better looking the base, I think the better painted the model on top of it has to be, so it's not eclipsed by the base. Anyway, besides that, your model has to sit on the base appropriately. Now, special posing aside, this is for generalistic stuff. You want the footing or the bike, if the bike's on the base, look like it could sit, the footing's natural, like it could stand there, or the bike could actually drive over that stuff. So, with that generalistic idea in mind, you should place your model on the base, or even if it's not done, like take the bike body once you assemble it and put on the base, or take the legs of the model you're going to put on here, put on the base, and see how much free room you have on the base. Potentially mark it off. And then when you go making your bases, you know where you can put extra cool stuff without it getting in the way of the model. With resin bases, you kind of just gonna have to buy them and then put models on them and see which bases, especially if they have different styles of the same genre of base in the bag you buy or whatnot, fits on the bases and which one don't. Because while companies do a nice bit of work in making sure models can fit on it, for the most part, they can't get every leg positioned down perfectly. Between kneeling, running, standing still, standing like you're bracing for impact, or lifting something heavy, you have different leg gaps and different leg sizes, so you won't be able to fit every leg in every model. Every leg in every base for the models. So fit your legs for that. And if you're making your own bases, put your legs on the base or put your bike on the base and mark off where you have extra room. And then that way you can do the crazy stuff there. And then you can even put stuff down on the base where he's standing. Just make sure his footing looks like it's believable. Like if you were standing where the model's standing, you'd be able to stand without falling or without flailing your arms and without trying to keep your balance. So that's model positioning. I hope that made some sort of sense. Basically, when your model's sitting on the base, it should look like he's able to do that, able to stand there and still function, or able to drive over that obstacle without crashing the bike, for example. Now we're going to flocking. This is a two-parter. First on applying flock, and then types of flock, or like how to get more believable look out of your flock. Firstly, for applying flock to your bases, there's two methods that I use. One is gluing or putting glue on the base, spreading with a paintbrush. You could water down the glue, I don't. And then it's essentially dipping it into the flock or pushing it up against the flock. This gives you a very heavy amount of flock on the base, as you can see. Which isn't a bad thing if you want that type of look. Like, this is good for like roads or dirt or whatnot. So you go with that. The other way is, again, painting on the glue to your base, and then taking the flock in your fingers and holding it over the container and sprinkling the flock onto the base lightly, without not trying to miss certain areas, but making it really light in certain areas. And then, after you just put it on, tapping the side of the edge of the base a little bit to get any excess off. With the bike base, with this method of just dipping it, I let the glue fully dry, and then I brush off any excess too. So, those are two different ways of applying that you can do. And then while it's drying, you can take like a modeling knife or something, or like a pin, and like make cracks in the stuff if you want to. But that's neither here nor there. That's how you can apply the flock. Now, with flock, when you buy modeling flock or modeling sand, or if you find sand, generally it's, depending on where you get it, it's uniform grain size. As you can see here, the flock does not, it's very uniform. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you want it to be more interesting, especially for dry brushing, because you can see here while I did dry brush it, the paint picks up essentially the same on every piece of grain, because they're all the same size. What I would suggest doing is taking the modeling flock you have now, making note of the grain size, and going to your arts and crafts store or whatnot, and finding sand or a different type of sand if you're using sand already, that's either a finer grain or a coarser grain, and then mixing the two together to make your new flock. Now you don't have to do it with just 2 different types of grain size. You can do 3, 4, whatever. Another really good thing to use for flocking bases is kitty litter, depending on the size of the kitty litter, of course. But you can take a little bit of that, mix it in with the flock you have already, and that way if you dab the base on, like if you press the base into the flock or sprinkle the base with the flock, you're going to get random grain sizes clumped together. And this will look really good for ruins, for dirt type of stuff. And when you dry brush it after you paint it, it'll look really nice and it'll really pop, because the different grain sizes will catch the paint differently and make it really shine. And I haven't done that yet because I'm just lazy, to be honest, and a little busy. But I do want to do that eventually, and I do suggest doing that if you want a base that can really pop and shine. Now be careful grain size, because if the grain size is a little bit too big and odd and you have too much of it, it may not be believable, going back to the first video, for your model to be standing the way he's standing on the base. But that's pretty much it. Also, when it comes to flocking a base to paint and then painting over it, make sure the flock is fully dried. The glue is fully dried for the flock. Tap off any excess lightly if you want to, and then whatever base color you're going to use on your flock, be very liberal with it. The only way your flock stays on the base is the glue and the paint that goes over it. So the paint helps further keep the flock on the base so it won't just flake off. And then after you're done painting it, you can add any static grass or whatever you're going to add to it as you normally would, and it'll look just fine. So that's pretty much it for this little ramble video. Hope it wasn't too boring, and until next time, take it easy.